What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of my podcast, Happy Days, with me, Callum Church. Today, I'm going to kick off today's episode talking a little bit about fulfillment. Yes, fulfillment, that one thing which pretty much everyone wants, I think, is probably fair to say, right? You know, fulfillment is something which everyone searches for in our lives, in all different areas of our lives. We want to be fulfilled. Why? I think it gives meaning to life, that sort of sense of going after something and completing something, you know, finding fulfillment. I think that gives life meaning. It helps us to give meaning to our own lives anyways. So this elusive thing, fulfillment, is something we're all searching for. Everyone wants to find more fulfillment. And how do we go about doing this? That's what I'm going to try and tackle in today's episode. I think it's an incredibly nuanced question. It's very complex with lots of different levels to it. But today I'm going to talk about the most important factor, in my opinion, that leads to fulfillment. The one thing, if we can tackle this one thing, then perhaps we will be on our way to fulfillment, and perhaps we might even achieve it as well. So, what I'm talking about here, this big factor I'm talking about, which leads to our own fulfillment and which leads to becoming fulfilled as a person in your life and in all different areas of your life, the one thing which leads to this fulfillment, or the most important factor anyways, is education. Yes, education and getting a little bit closer to the truth. That is what is, in my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to fulfillment and finding fulfillment. Now, to explain this, I'm going to give a little bit of a personal anecdote. So, for example, what I'm going to talk about right now is when I first got started with self-development. The way in which I did this was I got lucky, I suppose. I kind of fell into it, and I started reading philosophy. To be specific, I started reading my favourite philosopher's writings and teachings, and that's Seneca. I bang on about him all the time on this podcast, but he is my favourite philosopher, and he is the guy that got me started on self-development, I suppose. So thank you very much, Mr. Seneca. But yes, the way in which I got started with self-development was by reading Stoicism. It was this form of education, picking up a philosophy book, reading it and educating myself, which ultimately got me on this path towards finding my own fulfillment. You know, since I've started doing this podcast and started on my own self-development journey and started speaking to other people at self-development and all these kinds of things, that all got kicked off by me picking up a book. You know, there's the butterfly effect, man. It's crazy. The butterfly effect is crazy. If I hadn't picked up that book, then hey, I might not be nearly anywhere near as fulfilled as perhaps I would be, you know. So just by picking up that book and educating myself that one day, and going through that book and finding all these understandings and philosophies about life, about how you should live, that was what got me closer to the truth. You know, education got me closer to the truth, and obviously the truth is totally subjective to everyone, but I think the important thing to see here is that it brought me closer to my truth, my own life philosophies, and helped me to grow and develop my own life philosophies. I didn't exactly, you know, download all of Seneca's teachings into my brain. I sort of processed them in my own way and took some on, ignored some others, although I do agree mostly with most of the stuff he talks about. But yeah, it got me closer to my truth and finding my own understandings of life, and got me on my own path towards my own fulfillment, right? Because self-development is such a subjective thing. Fulfillment is a subjective thing. We don't all want to have the same things. We don't all want to achieve the same things. We don't all want to be fulfilled in the same things, you know? So it's by educating yourself that you get closer to the truth, yes, but don't forget that the truth is your truth. So, you know, what someone else might be discovering and helping them on their own path to fulfillment might be totally different from your own and your own path to fulfillment. So that's why I talk about education and truth in this episode, because I don't think, you know, it's one size fits all in this kind of game, in this self-development, in this fulfillment kind of talk. It's not one size fits all. Everyone's own paths and journeys and you know, paths towards fulfillment it's totally subjective, totally different for everyone. So get closer to your truth. Don't bother listening to what other people tell you about fulfillment. Listen to what speaks the most to you. And I know I might be contradicting myself a little bit there by talking about fulfillment in this podcast, but I'm talking about it, in a kind of loose way, I suppose, in a way in which, it's not a definitive answer. It's just a factor which gets you there. Instead of, giving you guys all the fishes and, everyone wants a different fish, I suppose is my terrible analogy explaining this. Everyone wants a fish, right? We all want to be fulfilled. And everyone wants different fish. Someone might want a red snapper, someone might want a cod, someone might want haddock or something, I don't know. And that's everyone's different pieces of fulfillment. Well, what I'm doing, I'm not giving you any fish. I'm giving you a fishing rod. I'm giving you that leading factor towards the education that's going to get you to the fulfillment. I'm giving you the fishing rod to go catch your own fish, whatever fish that is that you want. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in this episode. That's kind of where I got started in my own journey, and how I ultimately got started towards a path of fulfillment was through education, was through finding truth, and more importantly, my truth. So the more that we educate ourselves, the more we will find ourselves closer to fulfillment. So let's talk about this from a few different angles, from all the different elements of self-development, and through all the different, elements of life, really, because that's what self-development is. It's about everything in life philosophies, all sorts. So let's talk about health. Let's talk about health. If we want to find fulfillment in our own physical health, let's say you want to have the greatest body in the world. Yes, you got to put in the reps. Yes, you got to go out there and you got to go running. You got to get in the gym. You got to do all these different things physically to get into that space. But you have to educate yourself. What are you going to do in the gym if you don't know what to do in the gym? You've got to educate yourself. How are you going to, develop your cardio if you don't know how to run properly? You don't have the proper running form, the breathing form, the stride for running, You've got to educate yourself first, right? Let's talk about mental health as well. Let's talk a little bit about mental health. I mean, this is difficult, but with mental health, a lot of the time, people are struggling for mental health because they are uneducated. They are uneducated about how they should be feeling, how to process these feelings. They are uneducated in the fact that it's okay to struggle with your mental health. A lot of the time, the worst factor when you're struggling with your mental health is the shame about struggling with your mental health. And that kind of just, it's a vicious circle. You get caught in it. The pure shame from struggling with your mental health leads to more and more issues with your mental health. So if we can educate ourselves and stop these I don't want to say mistakes, but if we can educate ourselves and make sure that we are on the right track, on the right path towards that fulfillment, towards mastering your mental health, then that's going to serve you, right? Let's talk about intellectually. How are we going to get better intellectually? Well, it's a bit easy for this one, isn't it? Education, of course. If you want to become more of an intellect, you got to educate yourself. And not just educate yourself with books and that kind of thing, but educate yourself with other people. Hang around other intellectual people. That's some of my favourite conversations, is to sit there and chat to someone who is way smarter than me. Because I know that in every moment that I'm talking to someone like that, I'm growing. I'm growing as a person, and I'm becoming more of an intellect myself. So if you want to find fulfillment in your intellect, educate yourself. Finance. If you want to get better with finance, you've got to educate yourself about finance. Find out some of the truths around good financial habits. Find out some of the truths about how finances work, how economies works, and economics. You've got to figure that out. You've got to educate yourself in that. And ultimately, that's going to lead you towards your own financial fulfillment. Now, social activity, hanging out with friends, that kind of thing. How can we become more confident? Well, a lot of the time, confidence comes from being able to do things, being confident in doing things. So if you want to feel more confident in a social activity, you got to be good at that. You got to be good at handling a social kind of activity, a social scene. So how do you do that? You've got to educate yourself. Again, how do these things work? One of my little life hacks that I have, which helps me to feel more comfortable and confident in social situations. Perhaps it was with someone I've never met before or never spoken to before or something like that. A lot of the time I will sit there and I will, pretend that I'm the boss, pretend that I am the leader of that social situation. Because, our brain's always ranking ourselves, right? It's always ranking, seeing who's the alpha, the beta, and so on. This is because back in the day, we needed that to work efficiently in tribes. Obviously, we don't live in tribes now, or not the kind of tribes that we did 200,000 years ago. So we kind of have this outdated brain that's constantly ranking ourselves, and, where we are in rank, more or less serotonin is released in your brain. Now, that's the neurotransmitter for confidence. The more serotonin released in your brain, the more confident you feel. Okay, so what I do as a little hack to make myself feel more confident is I pretend I'm the leader of the pack. I pretend I'm the leader of the tribe, leader of that social situation. And this totally tricks the brain. The brain starts releasing serotonin in your brain, thinking that you are the leader. Obviously, perhaps you are, but perhaps you aren't at the same time. But it doesn't matter because your brain is releasing serotonin. It's going to make you feel more confident and you're going to handle that situation much better. So there you go. I educated myself on that. And, my social activities and socializing and, hanging with friends or hanging with people I've never met before, I'm a lot better at that than I used to be, purely through that education. And I wouldn't say I'm fulfilled in that just yet, but, I'm on that path. I'm on the path to fulfillment. So we're getting there. And finally, I've written down spiritual, the spiritual side of self-development. If you are a spiritual person at all, I think everyone should go through their own spiritual journey, but I think you kind of get called to that once you're ready for it, ready to face that. Spiritually, if you want to evolve as a person spiritually, you got to educate yourself again. I mean, it's funny how much a spiritual journey is about education, I don't think people really connect the dots there, but once you start thinking about that, it's like, well, of course, everything's education in the spiritual world, in the spiritual side of life. So if you want to evolve as a person spiritually, you got to educate yourself and get yourself on that path to fulfillment. This is why I love books, man. Like, when you think about it, books are awesome. The fact that we can learn all of the knowledge of all the people that have come before us, in the however long humans have been documenting their own knowledge and that kind of thing, we can study that and we can take that on and we can learn from that. What an opportunity that is, especially in the modern world as well, where we can literally get books delivered to our doorstep in not even a day. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And the books cost like, what, £10, £12, maybe less than that even, So, I mean, what is that? That's like maybe a couple drinks at the pub. Maybe that is a meal, or not even a meal, half a meal, out. So, I mean, think about what your worth is there. What's going to be more worth it? Something which will, last you half an hour max, or something which will last you a lifetime. It's big knowledge getting you up there in your brain and getting you fulfilled. So the only way in which we can find fulfillment, or one of the only ways which will vastly help you on your own path to fulfillment, is by educating yourself and ultimately seeking truth, seeking the truth, seeking your truth, okay? Find your truth and you'll find your fulfillment. So that is all that I have for today's episode. I do truly hope that you guys did enjoy it, as always. If you did, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because it does truly help the show. Also, let me know your feedback. Drop me a DM on Instagram. I want to hear from you guys. My Instagram handle is @callum.g.church. Again, I do truly hope you guys did enjoy today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. So there you go, that's the end of the show. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe on your podcasting app of choice so you can download and listen as each episode is released. If this episode helped you in any way, tell your friends, tell your family, maybe even leave a cheeky review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show. But that's all for now. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode, released shortly. Take care.